baby. Greatness today. All day long.
Fire up! Oh yeah, put him back here. My fault. No, you're good.
That was on purpose.
It wasn't though, bro.
It is the second push for Andy Reid in this training camp. The second day of a 3-day stretch in pads for the second time of 3, if that makes sense. Our coverage of training camp brought to you by Mosaic, the official healthcare partner of training camp here in St. Joseph, Missouri, and also the official sponsor of training camp. And a reminder, they are part of the Mayo Clinic Care Network. It's huge for them to do that, and their impact in the 4-state area is profound. Terrific folks here at Camp Mosaic. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the campus of Missouri Western State University. I'm Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs, along with senior team reporter Matt McMullen. This is the second big push, the second day of a second stretch of 3 days in pads, but the weather way different.
Yeah, it's 72 degrees out here today. If you watched our last live stream, it was like the surface of the sun.
Oh.
We were just glistening in the sunlight. It was miserable out here, and that was definitely the toughest day of camp so far. But one thing that Coach Spagnuolo talked about last week is that this period of camp is really the hardest part of camp, because you go through those padded days, then you get a day off, and you have to come back here and put the pads back on. And this is the second day in a row of having the pads back on. And so far, the guys have looked great. Seen some really great work out there. We've had some injuries that we've dealt with over the course of the last couple days, but overall, some great work getting in there. And we're so lucky the weather is as beautiful as it is.
Yeah, back when earlier in the week on Tuesday when they took the dew point, the humidity, and the real temperature, it was in effect like 106.
It's miserable.
And a third day in pads for these guys with basically 2 long drive drills, but that's part of the push. Today, and in the injury situation, the most notable would be Drew Tranquil. He missed today. His back kind of tightened up yesterday after having a great interception covering Travis Kelce. Not thought to be serious, but that would be, I guess, the most noteworthy of the guys missing practice. That, and we're waiting on Christian Fulton to get back on the field, hopefully soon. The cornerback picked up from the Chargers, and that was with the Titans prior to that. But our focus on this live stream will be 2 things. We're going to bring Ari Wolf back up here, the preseason television voice of the Chiefs. But we're going to focus on, really, I think, the story of this camp, and it is Josh Simmons at offensive tackle. But let's talk first, kind of globally, about the offensive tackle room. There are 7 in this camp. There are 15 offensive linemen. 7 are considered offensive tackles. And let's go through the guys other than Simmons here, because Juwan Taylor on the right side. We talked about Jalen Moore getting picked up from the 49ers. Wanye Morris is still there, and some other developmental guys. But your thoughts overall on the 7 offensive tackles in this camp?
I think 4 or 5 could make this team, and that feels like a lot when they're playing tackle, but I think we have versatility there where some of these guys can also play guard. We've seen that throughout this camp with guys like Jalen Moore. Wanye Morris played a little bit of guard last year during training camp, so they have versatility. But really, this is a great example of how Brett Veach sees a weakness on this team and throws numbers at it and says, let's find a way to make this weakness a strength. And that's the exciting thing with this Josh Simmons and Jalen Moore thing. Even if Jalen Moore doesn't end up starting on this team, well, you have a player that you thought could start at left tackle, you now have as a reserve that you can have as a tackle over tackle kind of player, or over the course of a long season, if someone gets hurt, he can go in there and play. I mean, that's just a great luxury to have, I think. So we'll talk through these guys, but overall, I think the depth of this group is much improved, and that's very exciting if you're a Chiefs fan.
That was discussion when the Chiefs did get Jalen Moore as an undrafted free agent. Only 5 starts, only 59 pass pro snaps last year with the 49ers, but he's playing behind an elite offensive tackle. But his ability to be the swing tackle. All 32 teams in this league need a swing tackle, a backup that can play left or right, as you mentioned, possibly tackle over tackle, 6-man offensive line. Then with Wanye Morris, 15 starts, big man touchdown. Wanye's got some snaps out there. So the group, which is still kind of developing at tackle, at least shows promise. And it does remind me of what happened after the 2020 season in Super Bowl 55. The reaction in building an offensive line we see in formation here.
And remember, after that Super Bowl loss in 55, we went out and signed a Kyle Long. Kyle Long was going to be the starting right guard for this team. He got hurt, entered Trey Smith, and Trey Smith has been, of course, our starting right guard ever since. Wasn't a bad thing, though, having Kyle Long, and if we had an injury, he was ready to go in there and play as a good player. You know, Jalen Moore is interesting because he was so good in relief of Trent Williams, as you mentioned, one of the greatest left tackles of all time in San Francisco. But last year, Williams got hurt. And Jalen Moore goes in there. He starts 5 games, surrenders only 9 pressures on 144 pass blocking snaps. And again, shown versatility in this camp to play both tackle and guard. So we're super excited about Josh Simmons. We're going to talk all about him during our live stream, and you had a chance to catch up with him. You'll hear that here in a few minutes. But having a player like Jalen Moore, if Josh Simmons gets hurt or if you have an injury somewhere else, or if you want to have that jumbo package, just again, major luxury to have for the Chiefs.
And other tackles in this camp, one that has caught our eye, that is one to keep an eye on in the preseason games, and is a crock pot guy. You know, you put them in the crock pot, let them simmer, and then they taste real good when they come out. Maybe a year from now, possibly 2 years from now, is Issa Pole, a guy that did not play high school football. He went to Chabot Junior College in California. Then he ends up at Wazoo at Washington State, a good player. But out here, you see some promise. This kid is a big, strong kid. He just hasn't played football. Not a lot of football in his background.
He's a fun story. And this is a testament to our area scouts that find players like this. So he's a big guy. He's 6'5", 323 pounds, but also really athletic. You mentioned didn't play a lot of football until fairly recently, but he was Washington State's starting left tackle each of the last 2 years. Allowed only 9 total pressures and 0 sacks on 500 pass blocking snaps last year. You can work with a guy like that, and think about Washington State. They're throwing the ball all over the yard, right? That's a lot of pass blocking, not a lot of run blocking at Washington State. So even though he's still relatively raw and new to football, has some experience there.
Yeah, which means he's out on an island. Athletic and powerful, but again, a developmental player. And we know, guys, there's Ethan Driscoll also involved, and Chu Godric, who's our international player that completes that group on the offensive tackle position. But, and a caution here, because you and I, well, you don't. You're grounded.
No, I'm not. I'm excited, too.
I get a little excited.
I'm excited,
Maybe
too.
too excited.
We're all excited. How could we not be?
Matt's really grounded. He's just got perspective. Like, hey, pump the brakes here. To get Josh Simmons in the first round, Chiefs trade down with the Eagles, ironically, go from 31 to 32, get an extra pick. But then they get Josh Simmons. Really interesting story. San Diego kid, started at Madison High School, went to Helix, which is Alex Smith's high school, but did not play there. Then he was at San Diego State. Good player. Ends up transferring to Ohio State. Starts as a right tackle. Then moves to left tackle. Gets hurt in the middle, at the early portion of Ohio State's run to the national championship. The Chiefs take Josh Simmons with the 32nd pick. Right now, it might be the biggest value pick of any in the 2025 draft. Here's, I think, the most accurate statement I can give about Josh Simmons. And people have asked me about him. And it goes back to our defending the kingdom, ahead of schedule. This team is ahead of schedule, AOS. I would say WAOS. He is way ahead of schedule. He's taken every first-team rep out here.
Yeah.
I didn't think on August the 2nd I would be saying that.
So we were really excited when we first got him on draft night. I mean, I'll run through his numbers here. In 2023, allowed only 4 hits and 1 sack on 443 pass blocking snaps. Then last year, he allowed 1 quarterback hurry. No hits, no sacks on 158 pass blocking snaps before getting hurt. So we were thrilled when we got him in the first place. And you and I kind of thought, all right, that's okay. Like, you know, a red shirt kind of year. We'll see him in 2026. And then we saw during OTAs he was practicing. And it's like, oh, all right, let's see what he can do in minicamp. Still practicing. Let's see what he can do with the pads on in training camp. He's been out here every single day working his butt off. I can't wait to see what he can do in the preseason. This is a process. He has to go out there, earn this job, and be that guy. But so far, so good. And we've talked about at length how difficult it is for a team like the Chiefs to find their blue-chip left tackle for 10 years. It's so hard to do because you find those guys in the top 10. Well, this is kind of a cheat code where this is a player that would have gone in the top 10 if he hadn't gotten hurt. The injury was unfortunate. He falls to the Chiefs at 32 overall, and now he's in our camp looking like a player that should have been taken a lot higher.
Yeah, I think of the Chargers here. They take Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern, first-round pick, high pick. Same with Joe Alt. They had the chance, and they took 2 tackles, okay? And the Chiefs in their history, when you look at a John Alt, Joe Alt's dad, who was a Chief, or a Willie Rofe, and when you look at a left tackle, it's a premium position in this league, especially when you're protecting the best quarterback in the league in Patrick Mahomes. But we've seen the athleticism, the knee bend, the kick step. We've seen all that. Keep in mind here, he's still growing, but we're seeing enough to get really excited about not just this year for Josh Simmons, but his future.
And the coaches have talked about some technique things he can work on. He's mentioned that as well. But if you're starting with a ball of clay here, it's very exciting when you have a player like this, of this caliber, in our camp at such a young age. I just think we have a chance to have a really good player at left tackle for a very long time.
When you were in pottery class, you were really good early on. You could see the formation. Mine still looked like a glob of mud. This is not a glob of mud. We caught up with Josh Simmons and jumped in to number 71 full on.
How exciting has this been? Because you've been out there with the ones from the start of camp till now. How good has this been for you?
It's been, so far I feel like it's been pretty good. I've been able to pick from Kingsley, Creed, and then Trey about just kind of what I'm seeing and how to slow the game down for me and stuff. So, yeah, I'm just taking it all in.
Josh, from the first day you walked into the building, you've attacked this, whether it's physically in the rehab or at the football part. How much of that helped you to get ready to this point, to push through long drive drill, to get these 1 reps, and to keep moving forward?
Yeah, it's just trying to build habits. So I came in and started working on those habits ASAP, whether it was putting an extra on my body for recovery or just talking ball with some of the, the GAs or something like that, just kind of staying on top of, slowing the game down for me.
What's been the biggest challenge so far?
I'd say probably I'd say technique. Just because everything here hits a little faster, the get-ups here are a little faster. The hands from D linemen are a lot faster, so making sure I'm very accurate with my punches, keeping low body, like good body posture and like a pass, stuff like that. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing.
You're talking about working with the other guys. I noticed today in OLD, it was 2-on-2.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that's working in concert. How much of that are you growing into?
A lot. So at the NFL, they're going to have different blitzes that I probably haven't seen in college. So, like to go back, it's going to all be about technique and communication, and also studying tape and watching like what they'll do out of a certain front. So I'm just taking those little pieces to the field.
How much conversation you had with Pat?
He's a focused guy. He's gunning for stuff when he's in practice, and he's really trying to get ready. So not too much. If it is, it's probably just a little tip of what he might do. Yeah.
You okay with Gelati? It was kind of interesting.
That's my best boy. We're tight. It's a little testosterone that raised, and I was a little winded on that next play after that. It was hot. So yeah, we hugged it up in the locker room. It happens in camp,
Final question: from now to getting ready for the Chargers in Brazil,
mm-hmm.
What do you want to do? What's on your priority list?
I want to know. I want to be a technician. I want to be one of the first, just be as technical as I can in the run, in the pass. That way I can set myself up for a great block.
Impressive. Josh Simmons already acting like a pro. He has dove in to this team, into the playbook. While guys scattered during the time off, so to speak, Josh stayed in Kansas City. This guy is working hard. Another hard worker, one of the more talented sportscasters on the planet. He can do everything. Talk about a toolkit. He's got it. Ari Wolf is back. I'm going to ask you, though, Matt, before we get into Ari, the most famous graduate of Emory University, Ari Wolf or the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter?
Let's go with Ari.
Let's go with Ari.
Wait a minute.
We're
We're going to be balanced politically. Ari Wolf or Newt Gingrich? These are all Emory University.
I'm sticking with Ari.
Desmond,
6 years of Chiefs preseason football. It's Ari.
Desmond Tutu?
Ari.
Okay. Tough.
Yeah. Think about it.
All right. Anyway, Ari Wolf is here, buddy.
Great
the
to
most
be
famous
here.
Graduate of Emory University.
Let's go,
Very
Chiefs.
prestigious university. So awesome to see you. Always is. And such a talented human being. But your thoughts, because your perspective is great. Matt and I are kind of walking through the forest every day. You get to see the whole trees, the whole forest. We're in the trees. You're in the forest.
The canopy.
Yeah. looking ahead above the field in a drone. What do you see from this team? Your thoughts?
Well, what I see is a team that contends every year in a league that always talks about window of opportunity. That's not the case here. There is true sustainability, right? 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls you play in, 3 of them you win, and the expectation this year is that you have a chance to win it again, and that's just not what the NFL used to look like. So what they're doing in Kansas City is just different than what we're seeing around the league. But when you look at this team, it's just simple. I'm looking from far out, but let me just tell you, everyone's looking at the offensive line, right? In the 2 Super Bowls that the Chiefs lost, the offensive line got exposed. So to me, everything is on the offensive line. So if Josh Simmons is your foundational left tackle, Creed Humphrey at center, Trey Smith at guard, you got 3 of the 5, and you are set for the long term, which makes you feel really good in Chiefs Kingdom about the long-term success. Look, this run doesn't need to stop anytime soon, right? Patrick Mahomes is only 29 years of age. So to me, it's all about the offensive line, but the most important pick to me is Simmons. And if he delivers to be your left tackle, that is great news for this franchise.
As a follow-up, now San Diego State's switching leagues, but they're in the Mountain West. You cover the Mountain West. You also had Jalen Royals at Utah State and others. From seeing where Josh was with the Aztecs and where he is today, what excites you about his growth?
What excites me is to take the talent from the Mountain West and then slide to Ohio State, one of the premier programs in the country. Now, I don't love all the college guys bouncing around, but in his case, it really makes a lot of sense, right? You go from a solid conference to playing against the best college players in all of football. So I think for Simmons, it was a great move. I think in terms of coaching, the infrastructure they have at Ohio State, it was great. And look, you have to get a little lucky in the draft sometimes. You need a guy. If he plays the whole season, he might have been the first tackle off the board. But because he gets hurt, you end up getting him at the 32nd pick. So we're going to look back. It's hard to judge drafts, in training camp right after it, right? In 4 years, 5 years. But, those pieces up front in an Andy Reid offense are everything. So if he can be the guy, and again, I just love the interior of the line. I expect him to run more between the tackles this year. There's so much to like about this offense. But to me, everything's going to come down to, can they protect, especially if teams are only going to rush 4. You should be able to handle that. If they can handle that, this team's going to do big things in 25.
All right, Mitch and I always talk about how the great success this team finds every year begins here in St. Joe with training camp. You've been around Coach Reid a long time, back to his Philadelphia days. You see how he runs these camps. What stands out to you about these training camps?
Well, it is a lot like it used to be at Lehigh with the Eagles. So this is actually my 20th anniversary of working for a team that Andy Reid was the head coach of. In my first year with the Eagles in 2005, and the culture of what they're doing out here really hasn't changed. Whatever the limits are in the CBA about what they're allowed to do with players, he's going to use that time better than anybody else in the league. And look, he talks about it. Bring your team, take them away from the comfort of the home facility, put them in a dorm, let them bond, let them get away from life at home. Look, I understand people miss their families, and that part of it's no fun. But to me, to build the culture, build the character, it's got to be out here in the heat. In fact, I'm sure Coach wishes it was 15 degrees hotter right now, though. By the way, I'm very grateful for the weather today. But it sets the tone for the whole season. You hear the guys talking about already in the pressers that if we can get through one of these long drive drills when it's 100 degrees out, then when I'm in the AFC Championship game and things get really tough, you go back to that dark place you were in camp, and you know that you've got it in you. So I think it's all about setting the table to have a successful year. Everything that I feel like Coach Reid does has both a short-term vision, a medium vision, and a long-term vision. He's thinking about what's going to happen in January and February today. He is the best of the best. He's the Mount Rushmore of coaches. Every year when I watch back our preseason games, I always have one regret. I don't say enough nice things about Coach Reid, because it's not just him as a technician. He knows how to create space. He knows how, but it's the way he develops these young guys into great men, great people. The culture of this team. Look at the guys they re-signed, right? George Karlaftis, right? Guy's salt of the earth. I mean, you want that guy. Trey Smith. So they're drafting the right kind of guys, and give Brett Veach and all the scouts all the credit. But then what these coaches then do in terms of developing them as human beings, and that's what when Patrick was asked about it the other day, what he was excited about, he's like, I'm glad they got paid, but he's like, not for what they've done on the field, but a combination of what they do on the field and what they do off the field. So all those things matter in a league where, tiny little plays make all the difference in a season. All the details matter.
We see narratives around this league, and you see them. One of the narratives always, and you've been asked this, and we've been asked this, the two of us, the Super Bowl hangover. You're down 34-0. You get 40-22 after you win 17 games. All those close games. Chiefs can't win 9 one-possession games again. But the whole Super Bowl hangover thing becomes a narrative question. Your reaction when you hear that or ask that, either on the record or off the record when you're asked it?
Well, know that most quarterbacks who struggle in a Super Bowl then usually struggle the next season. That has been the norm. I think Patrick has a chance to be different than everybody else because of the way he's wired. I really feel like he is the perfect leader, not only for this franchise, but the face of the whole National Football League. So the way he was so accountable in those interviews immediately after the game told me a lot about how this team was going to flip the page and move forward. And then his mentality out here, the way he works. Now, I'll steal his phrase. He practices like he's trying to make the team. That's contagious, right?
Yep.
It doesn't feel like there's any hangover. It feels fresh. It feels new. There's a feeling of excitement about what this 2025 team can do, but it all starts on the field with Mahomes, and he has this uncanny ability to know how to touch everybody, make everybody feel good. Whatever your role is, your support staff, you're the equipment guy, you're the ninth guy on the receiver depth chart, he's going to find a way to connect with you. It's so special. It's not just the eye-popping numbers and all the wins. It's everything else he does to make him the best leader for the best franchise in the league.
What stands out to you about the defense? Because somehow, for me, it's been the best defense in the NFL over the last 2 years. Actually, in terms of scoring, it has been. They still don't get a lot of credit, though. What stands out to you about this defense?
Well, look, you still have the play record and Chris Jones up front. When you've got Chris Jones, it kind of everything works around that. He's the Aaron Donald right now. He is that guy. I love the linebackers. They have managed to draft so well on the back end. You've got guys back there who are not first-round picks with the exception of McDuffie. So you got to build through the draft if you're going to sustain this success. So there's a toughness to the defense, and then I got to give so much credit to Spags because you got to know how to use the ingredients in your kitchen, right? And he knows how to put these guys in different spots and make that quarterback, the other team, come up to the line of scrimmage and think, okay, what's this guy going to do here? What's this guy going to do here? And you can hear it in the press conferences leading up into games. You don't hear defensive coordinators' names come up as much as you hear Spags' name come up, right?
Good point.
They're like, oh, well, what's Spags going to do this time? So he's in everybody's heads. So I think that the talent is there on the field, but, boy, Spags and the fact that this staff remains intact. When you have this level of success, usually all your coordinators are head coaches somewhere else. Spags is in a unique position where he is in his career. His partnership with Andy Reid is going to make them both Hall of Fame coaches. So to keep all the guys, but, Spags is just special. I love his demeanor, his excitement. I mean, he looks like he's having the time of his life out here at training camp. So I think Spags is a real difference maker there. But I like the depth of the defensive line up front. I really like the linebacker group. And then, Jaden Hicks at safety, that's going to be key. And can Connor continue to develop there? I think we know what Brian Cook is. So I think those are going to be interesting. And, what's going to happen depth-wise at some of the corner positions. Noel Williams has been a ball hawk. Will he be able to get on the field? So there's a lot to like about the defense, but I particularly like the depth of the defensive line. And those starting linebackers, those three, Chanel, Bolton, and Tranquil, those guys are studs.
Final question. Your priority, these 3 preseason games, you being the play-by-play guy on these telecasts, what is your priority going into these 3 preseason games?
Well, it's really showing respect to all 91 guys on the roster, and I say the same thing every year. There may be what to the average person is a meaningless play in the fourth quarter of a game. For that guy, that may be the peak of his football career. And so I just think it's my job and Trent's job to show the respect to every guy who gets to this level. When they have their moment in a preseason game, that we document it and treat it with respect. We never start goofing off or get silly late in the fourth quarter because, to me, every single play matters. And for these guys, it's a big deal to step on an NFL field. Yeah, they want to be there in the regular season. They want to be there in the postseason. Everybody dreams of playing in a Super Bowl. But you put on that Chiefs uniform and you're one of those 90 guys, I can promise you we're going to take it seriously and we're going to give you the love that you richly deserve.
That's why you are what you are.
This guy's the best.
The most famous graduate of Emory University, undergraduate, Ari Wolf. Hey, the folks at Mosaic are incredible. They are a presenting sponsor here at training camp in St. Joseph, as well as the healthcare provider. They're part of the Mayo Care Clinic program, Mayo Clinic Care Network, I should say. And I don't care if you're from Burlington Junction, Missouri, Shenandoah, Iowa, White Cloud, Kansas, or, I don't know, Wymore, Nebraska. That 4-state area, Mosaic does such an incredible job of serving you with the best. He's Matt McMullen. He's Ari Wolf. You'll see them on the Chiefs telecast of the preseason. You'll hear me on the Chiefs Radio Network, but we're getting ready, folks, because this football team is flying under the radar and a better team that walked off the field in New Orleans.